Welcome to everyone who's a part of this preaching course that is online at the Mercer University McAfee School of Theology. I'm one of your teachers, Otis Moss III. This is probably the sixth or seventh piece that we have uploaded onto the campus website and is also available on YouTube. The full class is offered at McAfee School of Theology. We'll have the information in the website in the lower third for the Mercer University McAfee School of Theology, as other people have also been listening to these lectures. This one will be very brief as I'm giving instructions today for those who are part of the class. And so the last class we were looking at tuning your voice, the utilization of your voice, that the voice that you have has been uniquely designed for you. And you can, when it is attuned in a way that will draw people only you can draw. There's nothing wrong with emulation. There's nothing wrong picking up things from other people. But as I've stated before, I come out of the golden age of hip hop. I would buy those mixed tapes out of someone's trunk for $5. And many times my friends would say, hey, why don't you dub the tape that you got? And I would dub it for them. I'd charge them $1.50 because I already paid $5 for it. So, I need a little money in reference to that. But everyone knows that a copy is always inferior to the original. So developing your authenticity becomes important when we're talking about preaching. Developing your voice. I have to tell you, I used to hate hearing my own voice. I could not watch, listen to anything that I said or preached. It was horrific for me because I couldn't stand my voice. People would give you a recording and say, here you go, here is the recording of your message today. And I was like, I don't want to listen to it. I throw it in the trash. Didn't want to be bothered with it whatsoever. But my father was sharing with me the only way that you improve is you've got to listen to yourself. Just like any other athlete, just like any other artist, you have to look at your work and you're always improving because no sermon is done for one time because it's never complete. Nothing that you've ever preached will be complete. You build on it, you improve it, you develop. And each time that you are presenting before a different congregation audience, they haven't heard that which you are speaking, but it changes and it shifts. So we talked about this idea of developing your voice, and we went through some wonderful exercises of taking the 23rd Psalm and reading the 23rd Psalm, but having different instruction. For those of you who may not have been in the class on that day, the instruction was simply as read the 23rd Psalm as if all your student debts were paid. Now, read the 23rd Psalm as if you just buried your 102 great-grandmother. Read the 23rd Psalm as if you just got fired from your job and then rehired a month later by the parent corporation, and you are now the supervisor to the person who fired you. Well, what we did is when people would read the 23rd Psalm, I would not tell them what the prompt was, only the person reading it would. And we would ask the entire class, what did you hear? How did it sound? And we had this conversation that we use our voices also to communicate emotion. Actors do it all the time. So I asked this right now, just put in the chat, who are your favorite actors? When we had the class, some people said, oh, I love Viola Davis. Another person says, I love Angela Bassett. Someone else says Denzel, Leonardo DiCaprio. The names went on and on. I found what was very interesting is that the people who said, oh, this is my favorite actor, they were always theater actors who moved into film, meaning they learned how to what? Use their voice. There was no electronic enhancement. They had to learn how to use their body to communicate emotion. Your body, who you are, and Philip Brooks says it this way, that preaching is truth through personality. If you're not authentically you cannot communicate God's truth effectively. So it's not about being someone else. And especially, I say to sisters who are listening, you will have people that are going to try and shrink your voice because of the shadows of patriarchy that they're dealing with. I'm telling you right now, don't let anybody shrink your voice. Utilize your voice in the manner in which God has attuned it. So what are we going to do today? Well, today I'm just going to give you some instruction for some exercises that I want you to involve yourself in. And this is called text practice. That's the term that I like to use. And so what we're going to do is first give you a principle that you are going to utilize whenever you are examining a text. Number one should be, I'm going to tease William as he's listening to this. Number one, that means that number one goes somewhere on the screen. Number one, you need to read the text out loud. Why? Because the text that we are looking at was originally an oral document, and it was meant for people to hear it orally, the connection with the listener. So you have to read it out loud. But before you read the section, for those of you who are out of a lectionary tradition, you need to know the entire context. So for example, if you are preaching from Mark, you just can't take a sliver of Mark. You better read all of Mark. Why should you read all of Mark? Because it gives you a broader context. Then you want to read that entire chapter. Somebody's saying, that's a lot of work. Yes, it is work. That's the whole point, is that we have to do work when it comes to the idea of preaching. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. So you have to do the work. You have to do the work. So reading the entire chapter gives you the context. Reading the chapter gives you the context, but that's just the beginning. Then when you have moved to the point where you are looking at, say, a very specific text, and we're going to give you some exercises of looking at some text specifically, you need to read that out loud. Because most of the time we read in our head. As soon as you read out loud, new things are going to appear. Because when we read and speak things out loud, it activates other aspects in our brain, and we begin to notice things we did not notice before. So that is your first principle. The second thing that you have to do, after you've read it out loud several times, you've already read the entire context, just in general. This is just called text practice again. The next thing you have to do is you've got to read the same text out loud from 5 different translations. I'm sorry to break it to you, King James didn't know Jesus, and no one was running around back there saying, this thou, hither thou. No, that didn't happen. So we have to approximate with a good translation. So you want to look at the New Revised Standard Version. You want to look at the NIV. You want to look at the English Standard Version. There's a variety, but you want to look at least 5. And when you are reading, again, from that text, just that section that you're reading from different translations, you will notice how the translators use different words. Now, I'm accused often, and they are correct, I will be convicted of it, of translating the Bible through the OM3 translation. Now, for those of you who know me, you'll know why I do this. I started out as a youth minister, and I was in a church where people always had the King James Bible. I didn't necessarily use that when I was doing Bible study with young people, but young people could never understand it. And it's like, nobody talks this way. Shakespeare's nice, but I don't get him. So I would translate using modern language to help young people understand what was being stated. I've kept that practice. And so here is your next principle. Translate what you read into your own language. Here is your exercise. You're going to be given a text that we are going to share with you. And you are going to have to translate it in your own words. Let me say it again. You will have to translate it in your own words. Then translate it a variety of different ways in your own words. begin to think about contemporary vocabulary that communicates the same words that you are reading. We haven't gotten to commentaries or anything of that nature. This is all text work and exercises in order to activate the imagination, but also so that you get a hold of the text that you are reading. So if you can translate it into your own words, you then are doing something that becomes critical in preaching. You must learn how to internalize and not memorize. What does that mean? Well, when someone memorizes it, let me give an example. And I'll give an example in a story. I traffic in stories. I'm a preacher. I traffic in stories. So there's a story of a great actor who read the 23rd Psalm. He said, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want." Said it beautifully. "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life." And when he finished, the entire crowd in the theater stood up and said, "Bravo! Bravo, it was beautiful. Thank you so much." This trained, amazing actor. And then after the end of the program, a country preacher comes up and recites the same 23rd Psalm, but he does not have the diction and the pronunciation of this actor. Instead of saying "Lord," he says "Lord." I mean, he just does not have the diction and pronunciation. He sounds like a Southern preacher. But by the time he finishes, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life," the people are weeping and they are crying. They're not standing with an ovation. The entire theater is in tears. And the actor runs over to the preacher and says, "This was the most magnificent thing I've ever seen. I mean, how did you bring the people to tears? What happened?" "I said it, and they stood to their feet and clapped bravo." You finished. People wept, moaned, and shouted. How can I learn what you did? And the old preacher leaned back and looked at him and said this, "You know the 23rd Psalm. I know the shepherd, and that is the difference." When you've internalized, it means that is a part of you in terms of your communication. When you memorize, you're always thinking about the next word. It's memory. And so you want to get a hold of the text so that it is internal to you. The ideas that you are struggling with and dealing with that are running around in your imagination and in your heart, that is a part of you. This is the internalization process, and this exercise will help you to internalize the word that you want to begin to explore. You're not even ready to preach it yet. All you're doing is some exploring. So this internalization becomes important. So you have those principles, correct? Very good. I'm glad you got those principles. Now, here comes the next thing. I'm going to give you a text to look at, all right? Actually, I think I'll give you a couple of texts, all right, to look at. Then you'll post on Canvas a couple of things that you're going to do. So there's a couple of things we're going to do very quickly that I'm going to give to you as an assignment. Your first assignment, and you'll see it coming up on the lower third. William, you got me? You got me? Okay. Lower third will be from Acts, the 8th chapter in Acts, beginning with verse 26 and ending, let me see, we want to make sure we end this right here. We want to end you all, ending with verse 40. Ending with verse 40. So that is Acts chapter 8, beginning with 26, ending with verse 40. So with this text practice, you are going to say this out loud. Okay, this is part of your exercise. You're going to read through Acts. This is part of your exercise. You're going to look at it in different translations, part of your exercise. Then guess what? You've got all of that now. Now you have to translate it in your own words. That is what you are going to put up on the Canvas, that being the website for Mercer University. You will then put that up on the Canvas, the translation. How did you translate it? And you don't have to, let's say, you don't have to put everything in there. Sometimes you may do a more truncated translation, that's fine. But after you've done all of these things, you should have internalized it so that you can translate it for yourself. All right, you got it? All right, that is your first assignment. Your second assignment is you're going to move to Isaiah. So we're going to go to a prophet. Isaiah chapter 1, and we're going to begin with verse 12, ending with verse 17. 12 through 17. You will do the same work that we just talked about, and then you will translate this again in your own words. In your own words. So that means you're going to have to read Isaiah, you're going to have to read that chapter. So now you got some reading homework now, and reading through, this first, second, third Isaiah, all that good stuff. I know that's a lot of reading, but you've done it before. You'll be good. You'll be okay. It won't hurt you. Those two things. And this is so that you can translate this text to get an idea of the poetry of Isaiah and your own translation. Now, in class, remind me in class, please, we will do some text practice. We're going to take this up a notch for the text practice in class, and then you will have some more homework. But we will have some more homework and you will have a text practice. So you're not going to have to read all of an entire chapter. We're going to do a really fun exercise that is going to help you as you are preparing for your first sermon in this class. All right, so those are your assignments. That's a lot of work, actually. It's a lot of reading, a lot of things that you have to say out loud, the internalization, and then place on Canvas what your translation is. That's what we want to see in the beginning of this text practice. I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday for our class, Mercer University, McAfee School of Theology. Myself and Dr. Fowler, we are loving teaching this class with these amazing students. That's you. So thank you very much for allowing us to be a part of your lives as we are having a ball talking about preaching. See you on Tuesday. God bless.